Yo friends, I'm starting this project this winter and continuing it in the spring. It'll probably take a couple years to finish. So I wanted to document it here at the very beginning before I do very much, so you can see how it grows over the years and see if it does what I'm hoping it does. I have this beautiful creek here running around the house. It was one of our favorite things about the property when we first saw it. It was just so nice to have fresh water on site here on such a, urban location. So we're really happy to have this, and it runs almost year round. It dries up maybe in the most dry July weather, but for the most part it runs year round, and it's beautiful. The birds love it, the insects love it. It's fantastic to have, but there's very clearly some erosion problems that I'm having. You can see here the old owners dumped a bunch of rocks along the edge to prevent erosion. But even still, you can see little notches of soil here that just still get eroded by the creek as it floods. This creek hasn't ever completely overflown, hasn't really messed with the house, and from everything I understand, it really never should, unless climate change is even worse than I expect it to be. But we have had some pretty heavy rain events here. We're kind of, obviously we're by this creek, so we're at the bottom of this hill, and there's a kind of valley area here, bit of a hill up here. So all this water from over here, road over here, rushes down to this area. There was twice this year where this area here was completely flooded with water, not because it couldn't go down the storm drain, but because it was just full. Water was coming out of this hole here, and every single inch was just spurting water straight out. So there was just no more room for water here in the system that's currently designed for it. So, what happened is this road filled up, and we had a mini river coming up and over this tunnel and dropping into the creek here. And then we also had a river of water flowing down the road some until it hit this, like the other side of the front yard here, and flowed in the back and flowed to the creek back that way behind the house, in between the two houses. And then in here in the creek, the water level at its highest I've seen maybe halfway up, real fast and rushing, and it hits this corner and it just wants to eat into this corner here. But frankly, even where it isn't hitting a corner, there's another corner down here, even where it isn't hitting that corner, it's still eating into the soil and changing the soil structure here, the bottom half of the creek bed, just because of how fast it's rushing and how full it is. Now, I'm not a water management expert, although I have talked to some about this project and this idea that I have that I want to start working on. I don't want this corner to keep eroding to the point where I don't have a driveway anymore. But I also don't want to spend a ton of money doing that, because I just don't have a ton of money. And I'm a plant nursery, I'm a plant guy, so I want to solve this problem using Mother Earth and the natural methods she already has for solving these problems as best as I can. So I've talked with an expert, I've watched a lot of videos, and this is the idea that I have. This is what I'm going to start working on here shortly. I will say one other thing before I start. It's been hard to find setups like this exactly. Most of the creeks I've seen on videos of where people are doing erosion work don't have quite so steep walls, We're just, really, really steep walls here in the creek. The creek is much, much lower. It's a good 8-10 feet lower than I am right now. So steep walls, big drop in height here. And so what I'm doing, I think, will work with this, but I also wanted to document this for people who might have a similar situation, since I haven't seen many other videos. So this is the beginning of the general gist and the general idea here. I want to do something like this pretty much every inch of the creek. There's tons of weeds, tons of poison ivy and English ivy growing in among the creek. So I would love to lay down thick layers of organic matter, wood chips, compost, etc., to suppress these things, but I also don't want this organic material to just be floating away down the creek and falling down these steep banks. Additionally, I want to start retaining the soil, and I want to start planting into this organic matter to keep and retain this organic matter here. So what I first started to do in this section, and it worked pretty well, I want to do it in one section at a time in other areas. was I planted these American hazelnuts, which I know are a species that can be used for some erosion control. I planted them pretty tightly together. It's hard to see with all this, but they're only a foot or two apart. And then they're young, so I didn't want to do too much right now, but you can see I did start to weave in some branches in and amongst these to make a wall that's probably a foot high or so in branches. And then, I came through, and obviously I just took a wheelbarrow and dumped a ton of wood chips down there. So the weaving wall in and amongst these young American hazelnuts kind of makes the support structure so the wood chips don't go all the way down into the creek. And then also in the spring, I'll come through and I'll plant more things in and amongst these wood chips, maybe some ground cover plants to stop things like the ivy from encroaching. The idea here is that I take a segment, 6 feet wide or so at a time. And I stopped this halfway down to the creek because I didn't have very many hazelnuts at the time. But I want to do it, from the top all the way down to the bottom with a couple of these branch walls woven in between along the way. So it'll be a terrace of stuff. And each terrace will be holding organic matter. And then as these plants are growing in it, that will hold into the organic matter as well. I didn't want to just plant plants because everything has been eroding for so long and is currently eroding. I wanted to make a system where I could add stuff to undo some of the effects of the eroding and start to add soil back and add organic matter back too. So by creating these kind of terraces, these little walls, that allows me, I think, to add organic material back. I started working with the American hazelnuts because I had them available. But primarily, I think most of my work here is going to be done with willows and with elderberries. And I'm a plant nursery, so I want to grow name varieties of these things that I can then take cuttings of and sell to other people. And I want to keep them organized. So I'm thinking about doing like 6-foot sections, 6 foot of this name variety willow, and then 6 foot of name variety elderberry, etc., up and down the whole bank of the creek. So that way I have a number of different types of plants to see how they work. And maybe I find that one type of willow does a much better job than others, and I kind of expand on that and I plant more of that. I think the hardest part of this project will be the first year. I'm just afraid of some of these plants being washed away within their first year. Even though willow is very quick to root and quick to grow, if we have some early floods in the spring, I'm afraid some of them will be washed away. But we'll see. We'll get there when we get there. You can see here, these are some willow that have been hit really hard by deer, and I'm okay with that. I'm not really trying to protect them from deer right now. These are flame willow, beautiful red branches here this time of year. And this is one area where there was this solid river running into these and flowing across the creek. You can see it washed away a lot of soil that was holding my living willow bridge tunnel here. And so I had to replace some, and I think these survived. This one definitely did. I think its sister over here did too. And so I'm replacing soil here and adding wood chips on top. But you can see here, these willow, this is their second year. I took cuttings that are about this big, shoved them into the soil last year. This is what I've got so far with all the deer pressure. But even with the flooding, you can see here all of the leaves and mulch and everything that the flood pushed into these. But they held strong. And so I'm expecting, the same to happen down here at the creek. I think I can get these willow to hold pretty strong. And, I'm a food forest guy too, permaculture guy too. So as these willows and elderberries and hazelnuts are growing, I'm going to try to interplant ground cover that has some edible qualities to it. I could do herbs like thyme. I'm going to maybe try strawberries. I don't know. I'm just going to mess with a whole bunch of different stuff in 6-foot segments and see what really clicks, what really works. There's a handful of plants that are currently growing here that I really enjoy. Like this stinging nettle here has really made a home. It's really happy in a couple different spots of the creek. So I'm going to try to keep that there. But almost everything else, this poke, this ivy, just about everything else I'm going to try to pull out. There's some goldenrod that has been making a home here, so I'll let that continue to grow. Yeah, but everything else I'm going to try to pull out or just mulch so thickly it dies and then replace it mostly with natives, but erosion control species. All right, so yeah, this is mainly just documenting my ideas right now, documenting the before of this project. So let me know if you have any thoughts. Let me know if you think I should try something different or try a species that I haven't mentioned yet. Let me know if you think it's gonna work. We'll find out together, friends. Here is the final before video shot here. Probably most of this creek will look like this next year too, but a few sections, a few 6-foot segments maybe will look quite different.